Hello, fantasy football fans. My name is Gary, aka the IDP Tipster. With me today is Brandon Jackson, as you all know him. We've been hitting on these IDP dime drops on these teams, and we're back again this Friday morning. We're getting ready to cover the Raiders. I know you've been a little excited about this. You've been checking them out for a while here, so I want to let Brandon take the lead and probably start off with the DL as normal. I know they've been revamping that squad a little bit up there, actually in quite a few spots.
Right. Yeah. They had a coaching change. They originally had John Gruden, and there was a big scandal, email scandal. He was let go early in the season, and they had an intern coach take over, and they actually performed well. They made the playoffs at 10-7, and gave the AFC champion Bengals a run for their money, nail biter. Their 26-19 loss. In the offseason, they hired Josh McDaniel, who's was the offensive coordinator of the New England Patriots, and he's bringing his New England scheme. He hired was it Tim Graham as his defensive coordinator. He's known to run like a 3-4 defense for his time with the Dolphins and some other teams.
I think it just came from the Giants for the last couple of
Giants,
years. Yep.
correct. Yeah, they run a 3-4 defense.
Right.
They run like some exotic packages, the big nickel packages with 3 safety looks. Uh, like last year, they had McKinney, Logan Ryan, and we saw a little bit of Jabril Peppers until he went down. So we're kind of expecting something similar with the Raiders. Uh, so we'll start on the defensive line, uh, presumably with the 3-4. The interior defensive line, they signed Vernon Butler, who's going to be the nose tackle. He was last year. He played with the Bears. He has experience in the 3-4 defense. So he's going to be a nose tackle. And we already know the nose tackle isn't really a fantasy, an IDP fantasy relevant position.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much occupy linemen that it creates for the other defensive linemen to make plays.
Yeah.
Next to him, Bilal Nichols. He's 25 years old. Now, this is a guy we need to monitor for IDP because he can be very IDP relevant. He's had experience with the 3-4 defense as well. He's played in Chicago. He played in Chicago for the last 4 years. He signed a 2-year, $8 million contract. Anyways, just looking at his production the last 2 years. In 2020, he had 40 tackles and 5 sacks. In 2021, he had 51 tackles and 3 sacks. So he's very much IDP relevant. Behind him, they got Andrew Billings. He profiles as a nose tackle. He's 27 years old. He's known as more of a run stopper. He signed a 1-year minimum deal. So he'll probably back up Vernon Butler. They got Kyle Pecco. None of these guys are really going to be IDP relevant unless somebody goes down. The guy we're really looking at is Bilal Nichols. He's young, 25 years old. He has upside. He's showing a track record of production, high tackle numbers, and some sack numbers.
Yeah, I think Jonathan Hankins just signed with them, re-signed with them.
Oh, okay.
So, but still, though, that puts him probably Jonathan and Belai next to each other.
Right.
Yep. So it shouldn't change anything there. I really wonder what kind of influence, the Josh McDaniels is going to bring from the Patriots to this defense when he was the head coach of Denver back in 2019 and or 2009 and 10, he tried to implement what they have now developed into more of this defensive back. New England used to have a lot more defensive backs on the field a lot earlier than a lot of defense back in the day. But they tried to apply that in Denver for those 2 years, and it didn't really work. They did have Doomerville at the time. He did fairly well. Then he had a couple of safety. I believe Hawkins might have been one of them, or Champ Bailey, a couple of productive people, But overall, he only lasted 2 years. So I think that defense was part of the problem. Do you think that they'll use a mesh of Graham's scheme with anything the Patriots had?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. That's what Graham was saying in his press conference when he came on. He came with the team that he's going to be using multiple number of defensive formations, and he's also going to run what the scheme that McDaniel wants as well. I was very impressed by what he was saying in his press conference. He wants to run, an attacking defense,
Right.
Because the last scheme Gus Bradley had, the 4-3 defense, he really didn't blitz his linebackers or safeties and corners much. He mostly left it to the four defensive linemen to create pressure.
Prep
Crosby,
guys.
Yannick and Dockway.
Mm-hmm.
But he's talked about more exotic formations, and he wants to keep the offensive guessing. So he'll bring some safeties up, and he's going to blitz. He's going to run an attacking defense.
Right. In which we got actually, if you look at what the Patriots done and what he likes to do and combine that, then that really looks well for the outside line, the rushers. Chandler Jones, Max Crosby, the edge guys. So you want to move on out to the outside. What do you got on them? What are you thinking? Is this a plus for them?
It's hard to say. Well, it's going to be a plus when with the addition of Chandler Jones, Max Crosby, and Chandler Jones as edge rushers. Last year it was Crosby and Yannick Ngakoue. I'm assuming that Chandler Jones is a better pass rusher than Yannick Ngakoue. He's been more productive than Yannick has in the sack department.
Right.
So that these two guys, they should feed off each other off the edge. So yeah, I probably would say it's a plus.
It actually, I kind of like it for Crosby. I think it might be a plus because he gets a lot of pressures. It's just that not necessarily stacking the sack box scores. So if I think he can hit home with a few more, especially with Chandler Jones. So if he's not got his hand in the dirt all the time, and I think he's ready to go on and secure and make sure everybody knows that he's a top 5, top 6 option or something. I think he's ready to turn that corner. A hell of a story with the guy. He was an alcoholic, I believe, depression maybe. Got himself together last year right before the season and just made like a total life change. Please, I wish I knew more or could remember more to tell you guys. You ought to Google it. It's an amazing. I remember reading it. It's a pretty big turnaround for somebody that was in a bad place in the NFL. So yeah, he's hitting all strides. He's gotten paid too. I think they just paid him real well. So what are you thinking? When it comes to any edge rusher, what are you looking at in IDP leagues? What kind of value?
Well, Max Crosby definitely has D1 upside. He has he's a high upside player. He has more upside than Chandler Jones, I would say, because he's still young. I believe he's 25 years old. 25 years old this season. Chandler Jones, on the other hand, he's in his 30s now. So I think that there's still room for growth for Crosby, And with him having Chandler Jones next to him, that's just going to take more pressure off of him. So I'm definitely targeting Max Crosby in leagues, my IDP leagues. I saw that you moved Crosby up in your IDP rankings.
Yeah.
I think inside the top 25. I thought that was very interesting, and I see the mindset because, like you said, he's been very productive.
Yeah.
He creates a lot of pressure. It's only a matter of time until he starts capitalizing on that. And next thing you know, he's double-digit sacks. He's up there with amongst the league leaders in sacks.
Right. Yeah,
Definitely.
those pressures have been consistent. He's getting in there. He's getting in there. It's just a matter of him hitting home. And I think that just a little bit of a change in scheme or how he'll be used, I think it greatly benefits the chance that he starts hitting home on more of those pressures. So it should be really interesting. I mean, you definitely don't have anything to lose. I mean, we've already probably seen his ceiling. So, I mean, if he can hit that pretty well, that's still worth it. So, yeah, I felt pretty comfortable moving him up. I like that. I like that a lot. So, all right. Where are we going now?
Let me see. You want to discuss Chandler Jones or
Sure.
here?
Yeah. Load us up. Go ahead.
Yeah, Chandler Jones. I mean, he's still productive. He's still, he had,
Right.
I believe, he hit the double-digit sack mark again last year, and he was paid. Did they trade for him or signed? I think they signed him in free agency.
That's right. I asked you what kind of IDP value they have. My bad. So yeah, we got to cover Jones. All right.
Right. I think he's going to fit somewhere in that DL1 upper tier DL2. I mean, he's still very productive. Like last year, he had a 5-sack game, the first game of the season against Tennessee. So,
right.
His level definitely still there.
Right.
And playing next to Crosby certainly won't hurt him.
And to remind folks, he's talking about DL, so it's kind of like an edge rusher's position. You do have edge rushers in some leagues, some sites or whatever. But if these guys are marked as outside linebackers or linebackers, then you might want to double check your scoring, make sure where they fall in, see where your sacks are. If it's a balanced or sack heavy league, then they still got a lot of value here. But if it's a tackle format, then they're not going to count much for those sacks. Then they're not going to be as relevant. But as DL plays, which is a nice place to land these guys because it makes it more interesting to have them as edge rushers and brings them into the fold and puts a few better players into the IDP pool for us. So it's good stuff. Yep, and that's exactly where I'd have both those guys too. One at the upper side of the tier and one at the lower side of the tier, bringing them off, at least in terms of edge rushers or DLs. So,
yeah, I'm sorry that I didn't specify that.
No.
I forgot about those positional designations, especially with the 4.
I do it all the time.
3-4.
Right. I do it all the time. So anytime you catch me, it's always a good reminder, at least one time a show to remind people, and we'll take some comments if you want. We'll try to help out if we're talking and you're interested in what we're saying. So go right ahead. I do it all the time. It's hard, especially if you only played deep leagues, then you would be so focused on just deep leagues. If you just played standard leagues, but there's so many formats and so many sizes of leagues out there that we have to try to remember to hit both sides of the court so that, you have an idea of the viewers or the listeners, the managers they'll have a view of what it is in a standard size versus a deep league dynasty, where some of these where some of these deeper players actually come and play as plays for each week. So it's as interesting. So please, if I ever forget, always remind them. It's a good thing. There's some new people that might come along, see us. We need to let them know things like that.
Yeah, definitely. Because these 3-4 edge rushers, a lot of them are classified as linebackers, and if you're in balanced leagues, it could be counterproductive playing them against these high volume linebackers. You can get killed in that linebacker spot, depending on the player. I just wrote a Dafe Owe article a couple weeks ago,
Mm-hmm.
and towards the end of the article, I explained all this because he's in the 3-4 defense, and he's designated as a linebacker, outside linebacker, an edge.
Right.
Uh, so in the article, I basically said, he's a high upside edge rusher, like possibly D1, but in those balanced leagues, where the scoring is different, as I say, you might have downgraded him to like an LB3
Mm-hmm.
because there was only like 3-4 edge rushers that finished, in the top 24.
And really, the only one you can trust is TJ Watt.
Right.
After that, then it's all second tier or lower. So, but yep, that's very interesting. Yep. So let's see what we got on the inside.
We're looking at inside linebacker. Yeah, because those are the only two edge rushers that are fantasy relevant on the Raiders: Chandler Jones and Max Crosby.
Right.
They have Clelin Ferrell, who's been a huge bust. They drafted him 4th overall.
Right.
Like,
I can't believe he's still on there, man.
Yeah, I think he has like a high dead cap number. That's probably the only reason why he's on the roster.
I have no idea. I thought his contract like fizzled out a couple of years ago and they re-signed him, but I truly do not know what.
Yeah, this is his last season. I think they voided like the fifth year.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's done. He's out of there after that.
Right. They could actually probably stand a little bit of depth signing there. That's not exactly who you want, next man up after Chandler Jones and Max Crosby, right?
No, absolutely not, man. He's not creating pressure. He's not getting the quarterback at all.
No.
We do have a Frackle, Kyler Frackle.
Yep.
He originally played for the Packers.
Yep.
He was sort of productive, not overly productive.
I think he had some time with the Giants too, but
right.
Yeah. He's definitely another option, and that would probably be the go-to right there. Is Fackrell, and then Colin. He's more of a defensive lineman, anyways. He's not really the outside stand-up type that we'll probably see from Crosby and Jones to begin with. And Fackrell, you're right, is probably the guy that'll be there. He's been known to get pressure in the past when put in that right opportunity. I don't think I'm going to go rushing out to make sure that I'm handcuffing Crosby or anything, with him. But definitely, I'm glad you brought him up. I forgot about him.
Yeah, I think they also have another guy, Michael Kuntz. He was a 3rd-round pick a couple seasons ago.
Yeah, I've never.
It might be intriguing from the developmental standpoint, but anyways, the guys that you want for IDP are Max Crosby and Chandler Jones. These guys move the needle. The other guys, too much unknown, too fringy.
Right.
Okay, moving along to the inside linebackers. Denzel Perryman, he started just about every game last season. He was very solid. He was like a top 10 tackler last season. We're gonna go ahead and project him as the I guess the strong side middle linebacker in the 3-4 scheme. He's definitely going to be fantasy relevant. I would say he was fantasy relevant last year. So now the big thing is, who are we projecting that's going to line up starting next to him, and can we count on them to be productive in IDP? Gary, I think you were saying before the show, we were discussing the New England scheme, and
Yeah, the whole thing makes me nervous. It really does. How where they play these guys, if they have any sign of New England's scheme being applied to this, then we might only have guys getting 85% of the snaps with a couple of them and another guy getting 60. We might not have a full-time guy. Everybody kind of plays a role. So I'm a little bit nervous. And I mean, as much as Perriman lit it up last year, he probably is a likely target, sure. But they went ahead, got Brown on there, and they got Devo. It could be a whole interesting situation because if you even think about this whole New England scheme being applied, you're basically looking at the personnel of Adrian Phillips playing a hybrid linebacker position. Bentley and Hightower kind of splitting snaps. I think it changed a little bit more last year. They might have got a little bit more apiece, but it was still basically Phillips. So if we apply that thinking or that chance of happening, it might be interesting. We might not have a full-time linebacker, but we might have somebody like Devo, which is basically linebacker. I think he could pick up nicely as like a Duger type player.
right.
Either way, I don't see how they don't get him in the scheme. See, this is like a touchy subject because me and you have been talking. So I'm going to let you talk about Devo here. Get us kicked off.
Yeah, Divine Deablo, believe he was he's a second year linebacker. Had pretty high draft capital they spent on him last season. He was a converted college safety. He played safety in college. He was a little on the big side, so they converted him to a linebacker. And I was very intrigued, by his profile, his production in college, and how he took over the job. I think after week 13, they benched Corey Littleton and they put Deablo in there. So I think I'm very intrigued by Deablo. I think he has upside. But you're right about this New England scheme. It's a little bit unknown.
It does a little bit of a kink in the armor, I
Right.
mean, we just don't know. And you've got a mixture of whatever that he's bringing, with him from the Giants. And, he is getting his first shot. If Josh McDaniels has something in mind, he's not going to be shy about it. It's his team. So I'm not trying to ward people off. I'm not really excited. I like Debo. But when it comes to Jayon Brown, I like him being signed. He can cover the seam nicely. He's just not much of a run stopper, which would be Perriman. But do they use him in some kind of combination? I'm just a little bit nervous if I'm facing. These are hopefully late options, and I even have Perriman ranked high. I like Perriman, and he deserves there because it's until we see differently. But we're just talking facts. I mean, it happened before. It can happen again. Take guys that leave New England all the time, go to Miami, go wherever they're at right now. They try to apply what they've learned from Belichick and that defense up there. Believe it or not, it matters. So, anyways, we'll see if that happens this year. But as is, I mean, Debo should be on the field one way or the other. Just what he done. I like that investment.
Yeah, he's very versatile. He
Right.
they said he was very impressive against the run. He had like a 3% missed tackle rate. So he's an efficient tackler, and also with him being having a safety background, he should be good in coverage. I was watching some tape on him. He's a solid linebacker. If he can get a major role, then there's big time upside. And with him being classified as a safety on my fantasy league, that's kind of like a cheat code. If he can gain a major full time role
Right.
as a linebacker, and then you got the safety designation.
Right.
That's appealing. That's very intriguing as far as IDP
If
is
I wouldn't think that I'd crash and burn trying to do it, I'd look up the metrics between Duger and Deablo, just physicality wise or whatever those types of metrics are. I wonder how close they are, but I'm not going to attempt, or I'll just crash and we'll just lose signal and have to start over. So I'm not going to do that. But it's going to be an interesting situation. I am a lot more warm and fuzzy about using some players from some of these other positions on this defense than I am that thinking linebacker, inside linebacker position. I'm kind of taking a pause on this coming into this year. I don't think I hate to miss on Perriman if he has another great year like he did last year, but I just really question that he's going to be able to absorb that much. Hopefully this team's getting better up front in front of them too. So we'll see. We'll see. It's a tough call. It's a tough call.
I mean, yeah, those are legitimate questions. I think your pessimism is legitimate when it comes to Perriman. I mean, he was very productive last season, but he does struggle in coverage.
Mm-hmm.
He have a lot of big plays in coverage. With this new coaching staff, they may not accept that.
Right.
They might want to put in, they might
not have to. Right.
Yeah.
They just might not have to.
Right.
In today's age of NFL schemes defensively, they don't have to. They just sign guys that are good at certain things, run them in and out in these packages, or just get a bunch of coverage guys in nickel and hope somebody tackles somebody. Right? So
right.
it's not science for us. It's just good fun, but that's basics of what it is. Nickel and all that, you better do what you're doing in coverage, or you're not going to last long. You're not going to be an every down guy anymore because they can bring in these defensive backs and replace you real quick. Yeah. So I'm just saying, I think Perriman might have been an outlier last year. We'll see. Is he? But I can't. That's just a gut. That's a gut call. I probably should shut up now, huh? Anyways, all right. So. But we definitely, we know we can trust Crosby and Jones. We're questionable on the interior defensive line, kind of questionable here on these linebackers. But right. I think we got a decent secondary. What do you think?
Oh yes, I'm very intrigued by Jonathan Abram. He's a top 5 safety. He's a guy that I'm definitely targeting fantasy leagues and IDP gamers. They definitely need to target him as one of the first safeties off the board in drafts. He's such an efficient tackler. He plays around the box a lot, and you're just looking at his production. Last season he had over 100 tackles, I believe. But he missed some games, and that's a knock on Abram, is his injury history. If he can just pull it all together, play all 17 games, I believe he definitely has a chance to be like the DB1 in all of fantasy. So I'm very high on Abram.
Well, yep. Oh yeah, I gotta love that. I mean, he's in my mind. They usually have to earn it to get up there, and he's earned it. He deserves to be up there. He's pretty solid when he's out on that field. Duger, technically, we don't know yet what they're going to do with him. He could come into play here. I don't think it's a big deal, though, if they implicated something like that.
Deablo? Divine Deablo?
Yeah, I think there's room for both of those two guys that could be classified as safety to be on the field. I like it. I think that's a lot of talent and would be their best bet. The free safety, I'm terrible at names. So
yeah,
free safety,
Trevor Mooring.
As far as IDP, I mean, he wasn't even a bump. He didn't even make a bump in the radar. It's just no blip, nothing. What do you have on that? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, he plays that deep safety role, so he's probably going to be doing the same thing in this system. I think I'm presuming. He'll play like the Devin McCourty role, the deep safety role.
Right.
I mean, he's a playmaker. He's a ball hawk, very strong in coverage.
Right.
Yeah, like you said, he wasn't getting a whole lot of tackles because that's just based on his role. He's a deep safety. So I mean, I'm not really predicting anything to change with the situation.
Yeah, it'd be a tough call to say that. I mean, even if he breaks up, well, at this point, I guess it would be a breakout if he did anything more than what he did this last year. I mean, it was bad. I don't. I'm not going to look. I wouldn't be surprised if we looked and he had like 40 tackles or something. He played the entire year, I think. Um,
Yeah.
again, talking about this darn connection between New England and the Raiders now. They have signed Bobby Bolden, I think. Did they sign him this year or was he already signed? He's a former Patriot running back. But they also just recently signed Harmon, who just spent a year with Atlanta. He's a former Patriot, was there for years with Josh McDaniels and such. Now I see that they're bringing him in. This is my connection. They just signed him. I think that this is another signal that it's possible that they might be trying to apply some things from New England, because if you've got a guy like him, because he's not Harmon is not an elite guy. He is an average player, good, solid veteran, been in the league for a long time. They didn't go pay him a bunch of money, but they did sign him, and I think it's for his veteran presence of what he might know. Just a little hint of something. Could we see anything out of him or anyone beyond on this depth chart? Is there anybody else standing out?
No, I know they have Roderick Teamer. He's been mostly a special teams player. He
Right.
played some with the Chargers. When he started, he's popped up in IDP fantasy leagues. But he's been mostly a special teams and reserve player.
Right.
So I think we're looking at, if we're projecting this New England scheme and this big nickel scheme with three safeties getting majority of the snaps, I believe it's going to be Trevor Mooring, the deep safety. Then Jonathan Abram, he's going to be playing the Kyle Duggar role up there at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
He's the most, I think he's the most reliable IDP asset. You can bank on him being a top 5 safety.
Yeah.
Mooring, no, he's not going to be IDP relevant. I don't believe you'd have to get a bunch of interceptions to be IDP relevant.
Then hopefully we might see Deablo in there playing Phillips or something. Adrian Phillips, maybe Deablo get in there and get something like that going. That would be kind of sweet if they actually mocked to, it's not the exact same personnel, but there's no reason that personnel wouldn't fit into that. So it'll be interesting to see, man. It's going to be
right.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the question. I mean, is it going to be Harmon, or are they going to put like Deablo, Divine Deablo, like in that third safety look, or in the linebacker, the single linebacker set?
Yeah. They made a lot of adjustments actually in the offseason with some signings of some free agents, even in the secondary. They're trying. They don't have a pick because of the Adams trade. They don't have a pick until the third round. It's possible we see their highest pick go on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, if we look at their offense, is there a true standout need there? If there's something, I think that they'll probably take something about the best player off the board at the time in the third round. So it's possible, that we see them throw in a rookie that might interest us. Probably nobody we're going to go running for unless they trade up and, might be interested in taking that third and trade up with it or something. But, that would be wild to see. When it comes to these cornerbacks, are you targeting them at all in leagues that has designated cornerbacks?
Possibly Rock Ya-Sin. He came over from Indianapolis in the trade. The Raiders, they sent Yannick Ngakoue to Indianapolis, and they got back cornerback Rock Yassin.
Mm-hmm.
He's like a young corner. He's still ascending and things. So I mean, he might be, corner that gets picked on, or so he might have some interception upside, tackle upside. He's still developing as a corner.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the slot corner is Nate Hobbs. So I don't know. With these corners, it's kind of hard to predict. I mean, you got these elite slot corners like Moore and Taron Johnson.
Yeah, it looks like it. I mean, from an IDP perspective, folks, we're not huge on cornerbacks. There's only a handful that really matter. Blah blah blah. We preach that a lot. If you haven't checked out the show, not to shortchange you on the definition of why we don't like to take cornerbacks. But I mean, I see it. I mean, it's the first time I got the glimpse at them. I was wondering what you had on them because they're pretty blah. I mean, if you wanted to take a flyer running into it at the beginning of the season because you had to have somebody, kind of look at the matchup. Any one of them probably work if they find out that they're the starters. But it's kind of a swing and miss deal when it comes to cornerbacks already. So they've made these changes. There's nobody like standing out, right? So it's kind of it's got to be decided over the next few months who's going to be where. I mean, I can believe the Sin is probably going to start with no problem, but it's just you don't know. They might bring in somebody else too. They might draft. Maybe that's their third round pick. Who knows?
Yeah. It's a big weakness. That's one of their
Yeah.
biggest weaknesses is a cornerback spot. So they could definitely draft the guy.
Right.
I know they signed Anthony Averett. He played with
Mm-hmm.
the Ravens last
Mm-hmm.
season.
He got a lot of play last year too.
Right.
Right.
He was okay.
Right.
But he's being projected to start along with Rock Yassin. So I mean,
Right.
we could get IDP production from him, but
Right.
it's kind of hard with corners. You just never know.
Right. It's a weird combination. So we're they're both flyers at this point. Man, I'll tell you what, I think we've covered most of it. Anything you want to add as an aspect overall on this unit?
Well, the number one guy you want here, I believe, is probably going to be Jonathan Abram. He's one of the top IDPs. He should be like, I think I might have him in my top 25 rankings overall. He's a solid tackler. He's like a linebacker, man. He's so solid. He's going to get 100 tackles, over 100 tackles if he stays healthy all season long. So he's going to be providing you that top 5 DL production. Next guy is going to be Max Crosby on the edge. Once again, IDP gamers, make sure you check those designations in your leagues. I believe right now he's listed as a defensive end, but they could possibly change him to an outside linebacker, and that matters when you're choosing. You're putting them in either your defensive end spot or your linebacker spot. Chandler Jones is another option. He's going to be providing like lower end DL 1 or edge rusher 1 production. He has that upside. We've seen it. He's got over 100 sacks in his career. Next guy is probably we discussed the interior defensive lineman. This is only relevant in interior defensive tackle required leagues. We discussed.
And overall DL designations, defensive tackles barely make a dent.
Bilal Nichols.
Right. Yep. Good one.
And the interior linebackers, like I said, it's a big question mark. We don't know how that's gonna settle. We like Divine Deablo because he's a converted safety. He's a high upside player, very athletic, and some of these other guys.
And he was like a third rounder or something, right? Didn't they kind of reach for him, or it was kind of considered an overpay until at first, maybe? I don't know. I can't remember. I could have Maybe it
Right.
was just a whole announcement about the change from safety to linebacker. I'm not sure. But definitely, I don't see how they can keep that kid off the field. They got to get him some more playing time.
Right. Yeah, I was very excited about Deablo going into the season, but the scheme change definitely puts that into question now. So it's a wait and see approach with Deablo. We'll monitor the training camp reports and see where this overall scheme where he lands in it. And if he's ticketed for a major role, then you know yeah, we have the green light to be high
Yeah.
on it in fantasy leagues. You could be a
No.
possible cheat code, like you
Man,
said.
what about this division, dude? The Chiefs, the Chargers, Raiders. I mean, there's Denver's got Wilson. They've came up a little bit. I mean, this is going to be a tough division. This is going to be. It's got some notable edge rushers and potential in it. Oh, this is. I like this. I like this. This is pretty wild. We got Herbert, Wilson, Carr. Carr's up for a good year with Adams. I think
Right.
Carr's up for a real good year.
Yeah, they played
So
together in college at Fresno State.
they, yeah, I think it's
So
going to be a wham bam. It's going to be pretty exciting.
yeah,
Yeah.
so Carr, I'm thinking Carr is like an intriguing quarterback in fantasy.
So in the end, flashing back to the cornerbacks, with knowing this league and who the quarterbacks are, it might actually be a good thing to put one of these starting cornerbacks on your bench if you have like super deep leagues, because you never know if there's average guys, they get targeted. So, all right, Brandon, well, I think we want to wrap us up, man, and get us off here for today. We'll be back next Friday, folks, with another IDP dime drop for you. Please tune in, hit the subscribe down here. Check out everything else at Gridiron Ratings, where we're located here, and our Getting Defensive material has for IDP owners. And plus, check out Rider Dynasty. They've cranked out a couple of late one or lately, and it's really good stuff. I gotta go. I'm starting to stutter now, man. Brandon, I'm going to close this out, and we'll talk to you all later. Okay.
All right, guys.